Hello, guys, and welcome to my Carolina Panthers 7 round mock draft. You're now to the 8th team in this series leading up to the draft. And, going over kind of the Panthers and their signings, I don't think any of any huge significance. I guess they are kind of revamping their D line with the signing of Bobby Brown III, Tershawn Warden. And then most notable signing, I think, is Trevon Merrick and then Rico Dowdle. Rico Dowdle, obviously playing for Dallas last year, was a very good returnman. We can see that they're planning, I don't know, it seems like they're planning to use him here as well. I think that Rico Dowdle has still some to prove. I think the Cowboys were kind of foolish not running him more early on. And, I think he'll be an asset to this Carolina squad, potentially, depending on, if they get more weapons or not, because obviously, as we all know, Xavier Legette is their star wide receiver, their young star anyway. Adam Thielen is obviously an aging wide receiver who's been a good security blanket for Bryce Young. They bring Tommy Tremble back, signing him. He was set to hit free agency, but then they re-sign him. And then it's like other stalwarts on the team that they decided to keep was J.C. Horn, obviously one of the best corners in the league, playing for what I'll say has been a subpar defense, but he's always been, a very good piece and a very good corner for them. And then, I guess some of the glaring issues I see for them is they were able to resign Jadeveon Clowney, but he is their best rusher, an aging pass rusher. And then they have DJ Wonnum, who to me is more of a run stuffer from Minnesota, and has been on the team for a couple, I think last season is when they acquired him. So what I'm kind of looking for in this draft is a wide receiver, potentially O-line. I think that Taylor Moden is an all right tackle. Ikem Ekwonu, I think is fine. He's still very young, and still on a rookie deal. So I don't think that there's any chance that they replace him. Damian Lewis, Austin Corbett, and Robert Hunt, to me, could all be, spots that they fill with a young player that they plug into play, and Taylor Moden potentially as well. Like I said, I'm not sold on him being a long-term solution. I do think he's a little bit older. Yeah, he's 30. Not that that's super old for a tackle, but you kind of know what you're getting from him. Obviously, QB not really a thing unless Bryce Young has a setback this year. I think he is the guy that's going to be the dude on the team for the future, unless barring a head coach firing. But it seems like they are sticking with their young head coach. But moving on to the draft, I'm not going to talk about this anymore. We're going to start this. Okay. Looking at who's gotten drafted here, we have Cam Ward-Sanders, Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, Ashton Ginty, Will Campbell, and Armand Membu. So I do think that it would be important to add a corner opposite J.C. Horn, because I think that that's kind of lacking. Will that be the kind of player that they add? I don't know. I personally think that, with the type of QB that Bryce Young is, and that he's willing to put it into tight pockets, you want some big-bodied target for him. Kind of looking here at the top, I'm honestly thinking, and I sound like a broken record if you've watched any of my other ones, I think that T-Mac or McMillan here, could easily go to the Panthers. I think you get another weapon, you get the ability to have a lot of guys who are going to be able to make contested catches, Thielen, Legette, and McMillan. And it's like, You could go Tyler Warren here, but it's like you decided to bring back Tremble, who I think still has something to prove and could still have some upside. I would think that Malachi Starks could be a potential player, a kind of splash, kind of grab for them. Even their linebacker room, not very good. And, I don't know if I would go Jahad Campbell, though, as he's not that kind of impact player that you expect top 10, as much as some of these other guys. And it's like, it's too early to go Mike Green. It's too early to go James Pierce Jr. or Izuruaku. So kind of looking at, what's available, I'm really thinking, we go T-Mac. I just think that you need, in order to look like, you kind of, know what you're doing type of thing. It's one of those things that you just, you got to look like you kind of know what you're doing and whether or not you're fully getting behind Bryce Young. I think overall they just kind of need more weapons to be able to like shift these defenses, because a lot of the times I feel like with Bryce Young is he would get blitzed and he would be dead in the water, because as we all know, he's of the similar stature of Kyler Murray, but he doesn't have the escapability or mobility that he has, to get out of the pocket. Like, he needs good protection. Does throw, a pretty accurate ball, doesn't mind the risky 50-50 throws. And I think that T-Mac could be that guy. You have Leggett, who's a good contested catcher. Thielen, of course, is a very strong wide receiver. Not what he once was, but still, a guy who can get you first downs and a smart player. So you add Mac in there, and it's like you might not even have to touch offense very much for the rest of the draft. Now moving on to this pick, I'm kind of looking and I'm seeing like a good number of picks. Demetrius Knight is falling down boards. I think he's a guy that, they could go for. I think he's a solid guy. I think he isn't the guy that you go for though here. I see Jack Sawyer, who's a strong, second round player talent that it's like could play every down and can play outside, obviously. They say he's a 4-3 defensive end. I do think that he could, transition to an outside linebacker, 3-4 rusher, type of thing. I just think that a guy like this with, the kind of productions, the way he's hurried, it's like last year, 38 hurries, 16 hits, 10 sacks, and just under 700 defensive snaps. I think that you're looking at a guy that is gonna be a constant impact and performing well against, Texas, average Oregon, good against Michigan, and then, good against Iowa. And overall just kind of, strong performances, except for against like Notre Dame and I guess the first Oregon meeting in Penn State. I think this is a guy that they could use. And if he's here, because I feel like these edge rushers, they go sooner than you usually think, because you always need edge rusher in the NFL. And it's like, this is late in round 2. But I'm going to take Jack Sawyer to address that we don't have a young pass rusher. And then moving on to round 3, we are looking after edge and wide receiver drafted. I wouldn't necessarily say we're looking DB right away. I think that, looking at who's kind of available here, if you're looking to kind of replace, or you're trying to get rid of, or you're trying to get a speedster, I honestly wouldn't mind Trey Harris. He doesn't have he has field stretching ability. He's another tall guy. You get this many tall guys on the field, and you're ending up in single coverage a lot of the time. And it's just like the way you can stretch the field, why not? I did say that, maybe they don't double down, or that maybe they don't touch offense that much after that, beside like in terms of weapons. But I kind of think that you could fix your wide receiver room and not have to draft there for years in this. I'm kind of looking at these edge rushers now. Aladeo doesn't really appeal to me, I guess. I think that, in this kind of spot, I think Kobe Bryant might actually be appealing. I'm kind of seeing him, and I like this guy. He's a tall guy. He's got good tackling skills, crazy for a dude who weighs 175, scrappy. But it's like, plug him in, plug him in this. Obviously, he hasn't played much slot, or plug him in on opposite corner, and he's got, good height, good length, and good speed. I think that this guy is, what you could need at corner at this spot in the draft. Now, moving on to this pick, I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of looking at Isaiah Bond, who's another field stretcher kind of guy. And I'm kind of like, I wish I hadn't picked up the other wide receiver, because this guy could have done a similar thing. Obviously not as tall, and it's 6'3" blazer is rare. But, I'm kind of looking here. I think with the number of picks we have remaining, 5 picks still, they have a lot of draft capital. It could definitely be something where they move up to me. I'm going to look at tackle right here. It's a little bit of a reach. Crenshaw Dixon, good pass blocking grade. First look at him. A big kind of mauler, a little bit older, but he's experienced, and he played right and left. He, I think that this guy, could play, and you could maybe mold him into something. And it's like, perhaps, you replace Moden with him. Now moving on to round 5, second round pick here. I'm looking, and we're kind of seeing a lot of QBs and tight ends. It seems to me like a lot of, round 5, a lot of these QBs really fall in this draft because there's really not that much. And kind of looking here, I'm kind of like, I don't think that there's many of the positions we need. I will look at Kobe King. Really solid run defense. I think that good size too. Junior. I think a man like this who played a lot in the box and had a solid amount of tackles and improved, from his prior year where he played half the snaps and he showed consistency. Maybe this is a guy that you draft I will say this, the missed tackle rate kind of bad, but you're kind of getting players at this point that they'll have some flaws, especially in round 5, and you're going to try to work on them to show that they can improve upon those. Now moving on, we have 3 picks left. Yeah, 3 picks left. I would like to address guard. I'm seeing 1 up here. Inside O-line, let's see. Yeah, we have Seth McLaughlin, and then we have 146, 163, so 2 close picks. We could potentially get a couple of these guys that are around this range. Pass block grade, really good. And I could see in this, yeah, wow. So I think that this guy could, be good. Condra, I'm drafting him as a need, as I think that the guards that they have, and I'm going to go back and I'm see, Seth McLaughlin's there. I think that Seth McLaughlin, is, has a very good prototypical kind of size that you'll want. So, what was his injury? So let me see. Torn Achilles. So this is why this guy is falling. I do think though that this kind of guy can get drafted and get work. He had a torn Achilles, but other than that, he was playing, I guess, pretty average level. 2023, I guess he had a down year for whatever reason, but he very much bounced back, I guess, close to what, he did in 2022. So a little bit of inconsistency here, but perhaps, you grab him, you see what, he can do, and maybe he can compete for a starting job. So with the last pick here, kind of looking at what we've addressed: wide receiver, double down, cornerback, edge, tackle, guard, and center, which I think is huge, and then linebacker. I'm thinking, at this point, it's like, maybe we do look at safety. We have a few safeties here. RJ Mickens, let's see. Coverage grade really high. Forced incompletion grade really high. Overall grade really good. And, let's see here. Good amount of tackles. Assisted tackles, 11 missed. But, I mean, overall a great coverage guy who can also play, box, deep, slot. They didn't really have him play corner or D-line, obviously, but, looking here, 6'2", 210. He's been going down, but let's look at the other safeties real quick. Craig Woodson. I love the name Woodson. Oh, this guy had a really good year last year. Oh, he's like the exact same size. Less forced incompletion percentage, but better tackle rate. So interesting. Almost two players that it's like, what is going on with him? No analysis, but yeah, very similar. Let's look at, the other two, Moore and Wooler. Interesting. So this guy had this guy had even less, and went to Alabama, which big school competition. Run defensive snaps, coverage for the tackles. I don't know why, but I'm looking more at this guy, and I'm thinking, like, what a versatile piece. Malachi Moore can play slot as well. I'm going to draft this gentleman to the Panthers as their last pick. It seems like kind of a no-brainer after looking at him and that sort of thing. And interestingly enough, let's see what they say. I drafted Trey Harris and Benjamin Morrison. I'm not sold on Benjamin Morrison. I'm not sold on him, you guys. I'm just not. After looking at him a couple of times, I'm just not sold on him. And, overall, I think that this is a draft that would address needs on just about every single level. The only thing that, maybe it would happen is maybe they do draft a running back at some point. Perhaps they only draft the one wide receiver, and then, Trey Harris here could be changed out for, maybe a higher tackle potentially than Crenshaw Dixon. But it's like, overall, I think that this would be a very good draft for a team that obviously they need these number of picks, and I think the Panthers are an intriguing team due to the number of picks and due to how scrappy they were last year. Yeah, they didn't win a lot of games, but they were scrappy, and it wasn't just a walk-in free win like we were used to seeing with, Carolina. But otherwise, you guys tell me what you think, about this, and if you would have changed anything, or if you think there is a position that I just didn't grab, which obviously with this number of picks, you can definitely double down. But that'll do it for this video, and as always, go Pack go.